In other Occupy news, while some of the 99% movement took to the suburbs to raise awareness of the foreclosure crisis, others were taking to the nation's capital. Today, thousands of unemployed Americans and activists from around the nation flocked right here to Washington, D.C. as part of their Take Back the Capitol Day of Action. In hopes of channeling what the Bonus Army did back in 1931, today's patriots are setting up camp on the Washington Mall and then occupying congressional offices, lobbying firms, and expensive fundraisers. The message is simple and clear. Our government should work for the people and not the corporations and lobbyists. But the message isn't exactly being well received by all the lawmakers on Capitol Hill, as many, including Republican Congressman Joe Walsh from Illinois, did their best to avoid being confronted by the activists.
Congressman. Do you have a minute? Congressman.
We've been waiting for a few hours to speak with you, Congressman.
Congressman Walsh. We have to have a coffee.
You can at least acknowledge us.
And this is the scene that unfolded outside of Congressman Paul Ryan's office, where the doors were locked and no one was permitted inside.
We traveled 1,600 miles, but it's Congressman Paul Ryan that we want to talk to. And we're waiting still for him.
Well, like I said, all of his appointments are already scheduled for this week. You can go online and fill out our scheduling request form.
Are you saying that he's not going to meet with us?
No, not this week.
For the latest on today's Day of Action in the nation's capital, I'm joined in the studio by Andy Gebel, and Shani Smith, and participants in today's Day of Action, and Catherine Murrell, if I'm saying that right, communications coordinator for Stand Up Chicago. So thanks to all of you for joining us.
Thank you for having
Andy and Shani, I'm wondering what your stories are. What brought you to Washington, D.C.? If I could start with you, Shani.
Well, what brought me to Washington, D.C., it's important that I'm here to be an advocate for my community because it impacts our community hard. My family is facing foreclosure. Our home has been in between forbearance and foreclosure since the big banks and greedy corporations crashed our economy. I've been in between underemployed and unemployed myself.
Yikes. Tough. And Andy?
Well, I've been unemployed for 28 months, and I've been looking for work. And when this action came up, I thought about what you always say about, get involved, and said I'm going to get involved and come see my representatives and tell them how I think.
Yeah, Tag, you're it.
Yes.
You called into my radio show today from Joe Walsh's office.
Right.
How'd that go?
We waited about 5.5 hours. We saw Congressman Walsh a couple of times, usually as he was running past us or slamming the door. I will say that I spent 2 minutes with him. Since I live in his district, he was willing to talk to me, but only behind closed doors with no cameras and no audio. So he at least...
But he did hear your message.
He did hear my message. Yeah. He was upset with us for occupying his office, but he listened to my message, and he said he disagreed with it. I told him I disagreed with his standings.
Yeah. And Shani, did you have any experiences or successes?
Yes. Well, we had quite an experience. We had we had gone to speak to Senator Kirk, and he conveniently hid in his office and told us that, or told his staff to tell us that he wasn't there. So.
Yeah.
Yes.
So you hung around for a while? And...
Most certainly. We were there for about 4 hours today.
A little bit over 4.
That's
remarkable. A little bit over 4 hours, yes.
Now, Catherine, you're kind of the professional agitator's the wrong word. This is what you do, is organize these things.
Right. Well,
so, how did this come together?
Well, it was basically a lot of different groups across the country working together, realizing they were working already in their communities, in their cities, on issues of economic justice, on standing up for the 99%. Some groups were Occupy groups, some groups like our group, Stand Up Chicago, coalitions of community groups and labor groups. But we were already working on these kinds of issues, and then we started talking to each other, and with some other groups helping us coordinate, like, say, Move On, the American Dream Movement, we put together something really big.
Yeah. Were you all working on this long before the Occupy movement came along, or as a consequence of it?
No, actually, we've been working on economic justice issues in Chicago as a coalition since early 2011. So we were working on these issues as a coalition for many, many months before Occupy started.
Some of these groups go back decades.
And right, coalition members of ours
Centuries.
can go back, right, precisely. Economic justice, I mean, fighting for economic justice and the idea that people who work for a living deserve to enjoy the fruits of their labor, that people deserve to have a decent standard of living if they work full-time. That's not a new idea, and it's gotten more relevant since the economy was crashed by the big banks, and income inequality has, grown to levels not seen since the 1920s. But it's nothing new, and we were already working on it in Chicago, but we were really excited when Occupy Chicago came along and helped to amplify our message.
That's great. Shani, I'm curious your thoughts on the juxtaposition of how the Tea Party was welcomed in Washington, D.C., and how the Occupy movement seems to be striking fear into the hearts of members of Congress. Politicians seem to react to pressure. What's your sense of the way the winds are blowing?
The way winds are blowing, I believe that eventually they have to listen to the 99%. And we are the 99%. It's good to know that I'm not the only one that's experiencing unemployment or underemployment, because 1 in 5 people are having a hard time finding a job. What do you do with that? You can't house or put a house or roof over your family's head. You can't feed your family. We are out here having a hard time, being able to provide for our families. So they have to listen. They're here to represent us. We are the 99%.
Right. We're in a Great Depression functionally. I mean, if you look at U6, the actual number of unemployment with underemployment and discouraged workers, it's like 16% of the population, and arguably as much as 20%. Andy, what's your sense of what's going on, and what kind of feedback have you been getting? And as part of that long-term unemployed group, what are you hearing? I'm assuming you're raising the issue about the extension of unemployment benefits.
Right.
What are you hearing from that?
Haven't heard anything. Like I say, just talking to Congressman Walsh, and he's all in favor of taking rid of all regulation, getting rid of it, that'll increase employment, and I told him I disagreed with it. Yeah. I want to see the economy stimulated somehow to start causing more jobs, and not cut the social programs like Social Security, Medicare, and Medicaid. And I feel like most of the congressmen, most of the senators are not listening. Right.
Tomorrow, are you going back? You spent today with your congressman. You also have 2 senators. Are you going back to their offices tomorrow? Or is this continuing, or was this kind of a one-off?
No, I believe tomorrow is going to be K Street. And,
Occupy the lobbyists.
Yes, that's right. Yes.
That's great.
See if they'll listen to us any better than our congressmen do.
So, Catherine, tell us about how this is going to be moving through the week.
Well, tomorrow, as Andy was saying, we're going to be focusing on K Street, which is crucial because, the reason that our congresspeople aren't listening to us, the people they represent, is because they're representing the interests of big corporations and big banks. There's a reason that corporations and big banks give so much in campaign contributions to certain representatives and certain members of Congress, because they get their money's worth out of it. It's a wise business decision to invest in the congressperson who will, do your bidding, basically. And so we're taking the 99% tomorrow to K Street to say we're paying attention. We know about the influence you have, and we're going to shine a spotlight on it. And we're not accepting that anymore. These are our representatives. This is our government, and we're taking it back. We're taking control away from the big companies, the big banks, and making Congress listen to us.
Shani, when you visited Congress today, you were on public property, and you were talking to elected representatives who, arguably by law, certainly by morality and American tradition, have to pay attention to you. When you visit K Street tomorrow, you're going to be on private property, and you're going to be talking to corporations and private employers who have every right to basically have you arrested for trespassing. How are you going to approach it differently?
I don't see that there's any different approach. I'm human, they're human, and they have to understand the needs of the people. We need to be able to support our families. We need unemployment benefits extended. We need homes to stop being foreclosed on within our communities. We need jobs to be created. And big money cannot run this country. It's time to take back our capital. It's time to take back our country.
There you go. And well said. And I'm sorry we're out of time, but thank you all for being here with you. Joe,
so
Catherine, Shani, thank you. Thank you so much.